2025 meeting of the Palmyra Area School Board of Directors to order. Kindly stand with us if you're able and say the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I kindly want to ask our board members too to also speak a little louder this evening. Our Mr. Frentz is our secretary this evening. He brings his personal sound system with him every week, so we did not have that with us tonight. So if we could speak just a little louder so we can all hear, we appreciate that. And also our assistant secretary, Ms. Gilligan, is not present, so I have asked Mr. Loudermilk to please take the roll call for us. And if at the end you can state how many are present for the matter of quorum.
Andrew.
Present.
Fisher.
Here.
Guy.
Here.
Gilligan. Sue. Altman.
Here.
Laudermilk here. Martin.
Here.
Spondella.
Here.
Steinmetz.
Here.
Sue Gilligan.
She is going to be absent tonight.
Oh, she's not going to be here at all. 8 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Next, we'll move into the approval of the board minutes. Minutes for the reorganization meeting and the regular school board meeting for hiring purposes were circulated. Does anyone have any corrections? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Next, we will move into Palmyra Pride. Dr. Kepler, I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you, Mrs. Martin. All right, full house tonight for Palmyra Pride. I love it. First, I see this. Fraser, come on up here. With us tonight is third grade teacher Megan Fraser at Northside Elementary. Megan is an inaugural winner of a new award in the Lancaster Lebanon IU. I had Mr. Applequist provide me with a little background on this award to help me tonight. The award that Megan received honors a cooperating teacher who goes above and beyond in mentoring pre-service teachers. Ms. Fraser was nominated by her principal, Mr. Applequist, as he's been so impressed by the care and the intentionality that Ms. Fraser demonstrates as a mentor, especially with her recent support of the growth of her current student teacher. The time and thought that Ms. Fraser invests not only impacted her student teacher's future career, but it also created a huge ripple effect for future educators who had a chance to learn from her. As Dr. Lauren Miller, the executive director of the Lancaster STEM Alliance, shared in her letter to Ms. Fraser, there were many outstanding educators nominated this year, and your application truly stood out among our judges. So we thank you for making us Palmyra proud. So on behalf of the board and the administration, we have a certificate for you tonight, Ms. Fraser. This says, in honor of your exemplary mentor teacher award for outstanding dedication, guidance, and unwavering commitment to excellence. We present, this award was presented at the Excellence in Education celebration hosted by Millersville University and the Lancaster County STEM Alliance, and we are so thankful you represent our school district here in Palmyra. Thank you very much. Our next Palmyra Pride representative is Missy Patrick. Come on up here, Missy. Oh, Missy's an employee with us. She works at our middle school as a cafeteria monitor and anything and everything in between.
Yes.
This recognition actually doesn't stem from her work with us. It was efforts that Missy did in our community of Palmyra. So tonight we recognize you on behalf of the administration and the board of school directors for your exceptional leadership as the chairwoman of the Palmyra Great Give. Missy led this initiative, just talking to her, used to be a team of 3, a team of 2, now kind of a solo team running Palmyra's Great Give. A 24-hour give-a-thon, if you will. She camped out this year at the Palmyra Public Pool. Spent 24 hours there, slept 2 of them. The other 22 hours she worked in helping raise funds. over $50,000 raised in that 24-hour period, helping support 27 local nonprofits doing life-changing work in Palmyra and beyond. Her vision, dedication, and commitment made this 24-hour giving day a remarkable success. So I've given you a forewarning to tell us, take a minute or two and just tell us about Palmyra's Great Give and what it does.
So yeah, this is the 7th year. It started out as all the local organizations wanting to come together and pool their resources. And so it came about like, hey, what can we do that we could all work together? So the Giving Day, much like Giving Tuesday, came about. So organizations register for a small fee and have we work together, get donors, get sponsors, and we have this big 24-hour day that all the funds raised go directly to them.
So we appreciate you being a leader in our community, helping organizations help our community. See these girls here from field hockey, many of which I saw at National Honor Society this week. One of the pillars was service, right? We talked about this as a true example of service in your community. So National Honor Society members, remember this as an example. Okay. So again, Missy, we have a certificate for you tonight that reads, in honor of your exceptional leadership as chairwoman of the Palmyra Great Give, where you helped raise over $50,000 in just 24 hours to support 27 local nonprofits doing life-changing work. On behalf of all of us, thank you for your commitment to our community. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Kind of come around over here, kind of like a big dog. For our board members that don't know, the name Big Dog is Coach Kent Harshman. I'm sure most of you have heard that name before. Let me just read off some stats before I say something. One thing I planned on saying tonight about this group of young ladies and this program is Palmyra Field Hockey doesn't rebuild, they reload on an annual basis. Pretty well known in the athletic community, in the mid-state, in the state, and in the nation, right? They know Palmyra Field Hockey everywhere in the United States. In the last 25 years, Palmyra Field Hockey went to 16 district finals, winning 14 of the 16 district championships they were in. In those same 25 years, competed in 11 state finals, and this year winning their 4th state championship. So, state championship group right here in front of you. I had the opportunity to attend the banquet at season's end, and it's like it is every year. I'm going to ask you all in unison to say SKIDS with me. What's the S stand for?
Strength.
C?
Courage.
I?
Tenacity.
And the J?
Joy.
That is the mantra I've known for 13 years about Palmyra Field Hockey. And you sit at the banquet watching these young ladies with their coaches, and it's exemplified and what their program is all about. Palmyra Field Hockey produces young women into our society, not just field hockey players, and that's critical in your development and our society's development. So with that said, tonight, Coach already has certificates for you. We, the district administration and school board, are recognizing you. This is the 4th state championship team in Palmyra history to put that gold medal around your neck. So if I say your name, just give a wave to our crowd and board so we know who's all here tonight. But 23 wins and 3 losses, state champions. I have to add one more thing. In that final 20 seconds, and that ball was sitting in front of the cage, I was nervous standing at the other end watching it. That ball felt like it sat there for a minute, didn't it, Coach? Was it longer than a minute, it felt like? Yep. And wow, what a save and what an ending to that game. But our championship participants, Bree Achenbach, Addie Barger, Adriana Beauperlant, Abby Bennett, Sophie Cunningham, Ella Detweiler, Kate Driscoll, Mariah Dupree, Allie Fink, Grace Frew, Leah Gephardt, Maddie Gingrich, Katie Hathaway, Liv Hepner, Leah Kane, Sophie Kennelly, Michael Leckleitner, Avery Nettle, Cordelia Potts, Callie Scipione. Did I get it right, Callie? Did I say it right? Somebody affirm me.
Yeah.
All right. Sophie Kennelly. Skipping back, I apologize. Macy Shaughnessy, Maddie Stahl, Katie Steelman, Amelia Valley, Cameron Van Zandt, Maddie Waldron, AJ Walker, Jovi Weaver, Madeline Witt, and Ava Wolf. And our coach is Kent Harshman, our head coach, is here tonight, as is Kayla Ricker, assistant coach. Other coaches, Christy Costello, Aaron Huffman, Olivia Shoemaker, and Caroline Shearer. So coaches, thank you for all you do, and the time commitment we know is great. Ladies, thanks for representing us on the field, but off of it just as well as you do on. We're proud of you. Great job. So ladies, you are welcome to stay for the whole meeting. You're also welcome to go home and get ready for 3 more days of school before your winter break. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, before you go, who is a senior? Can we just start at the line? Who's a senior? Are you a senior? Where are you going? On a scholarship?
To play field hockey.
Oh, you okay? Who's the next senior?
I'm going to
Nice. A field hockey scholarship?
South.
Excellent. Next senior?
Other seniors?
Oh, I don't know where I'm going yet.
You're not going, okay.
I'm going to Millersville to play field hockey.
Oh, nice, okay.
I'm going to IUP to play field hockey.
Excellent.
I'm going to Syracuse to play field hockey.
Oh, you'll love it there, yeah, okay.
So,
Oh, well, congratulations.
Good night. So yeah, they'll be back next year. No pressure, coach.
We will be back.
Love it. Love it. Mark those words. I love it. Thank you, lady.
thank you.
Thank you. Ladies.
That was lots of seats.
There's lots of seats. Come up to our faithful attendees. All right, so moving on to the president's report. I don't have a lot to say this evening. Just wanted to share that Palmyra will be represented in Germany in March. I was selected to attend the PSBA Study Abroad group, and we will be visiting German schools and meeting with German educators the week of March 14th. So fortunately, that's in between our meetings, so I won't miss any here. But I do look forward to learning and meeting people and hopefully bringing back things to Palmyra to just improve things here, and we can learn from them. So just wanted to give that brief update. I will be asked to present at the PSBA conference next fall and be with 9 other educators and school board members and 3 PSBA board members. Funny story, one of the attendees is the superintendent from the high school I graduated from. So that was kind of a fun personal connection, but I look forward to that. Look forward to sharing more with Palmyra. So moving on, now have visitor comments. Is there anyone who's a resident of Palmyra Area School District who would like to speak? Not you? Okay. All right, then we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, and that's curriculum. Mr. Guy?
The curriculum committee met on November 20th, 2025. We took a look at a recommendation for 4 new clubs the Astronomy Club, the Craft Club, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes Club, and the Ultimate Frisbee Club. There was also discussion of the senior field trip, which will take place on Monday, June 1st, 2026, to Ocean City, New Jersey. The high school course catalog for 26-27 was presented and explained to us by Mrs. Waldison as far as going over the high school catalog. And again, that will be a motion on December 18th, 2025. There was also curriculum presentations as well. And we closed the meeting at 7:48 p.m. Motion. Approval of the consent agenda staffing. That's the wrong one. Well, I've been doing that for so many years. I've put the wrong thing here. Okay, let's go back up here. Approval of the consent agenda, curriculum, and instructional activity items.
I have a motion to approve the curriculum and instruction committee items as noted on the curriculum and instruction consent agenda. Do I have a second? Second, Ms. Holloman. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Guy.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to staffing and administration. In Ms. Gilligan's absence, I have asked Mr. Loudermilk to fill in for her. Turning over to you.
Thank you. We met on, if you can scroll a little bit there, the November 20th. We received a budget update. State subsidy comparison was included in that, and 25-26 committed versus not committed funds. Review of change orders, in preparation for a motion this evening. The arbiter pay contract renewal, which we have a motion as well tonight. We have a board policy reading for 3 policies. Policy 819, suicide awareness. Policy 830.1, data governance. And policy 918, Title I, parent and family engagement. There were second policy, second reading of board policy 250, student recruitment. Second reading, deletion of policy 225, student and police. Public comment, there was no public comment. Following public comment was the announcement of executive session. The meeting adjourned at 8:17. The next meeting of the Staffing and Administration Committee is scheduled for Thursday, December 18th, this evening, after the Curriculum Committee meeting right here in the cafeteria. Following that, we have a motion to approve the Staffing and Administration Committee items as noted on the Staffing and Administration consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Loudermilk. I have a motion to approve the Staffing and Administration Committee items as noted on the Staffing and Administration consent agenda on the table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Guy. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, next we'll move into reports. Dr. Kepler, your superintendent's report is first.
Thank you, Mrs. Martin.
Oh no, we have the, oh no, Agnes is the superintendent report. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I would like to start this evening by congratulating our December Rotary Student of the Month, Lucas Beislein. Looking forward to meeting Lucas and his family at the Rotary meeting in January. Also, congratulations to our middle school students of the month in grade 6, Lucy Kobaberis, in grade 7, Charlotte Sirio, and grade 8, Mackenzie George. Also highlight to the board and the public that we are 2/3 of the way through our winter Keystone testing, with literature Keystone taking place earlier in December. Algebra Keystone actually wasn't updated. We had a 2-hour delay, and that had to get pushed to Tuesday the 16th after this went to to Ms. Kane for publication. And then the biology keystones are upcoming after the new year. A couple items I'd like to highlight for the board and the public regarding items coming out of Harrisburg. Just to highlight to you that a few week or so ago, Senate Bill 1014 was unanimously passed by the Senate Education Committee. And this proposed legislation is in essence a cell phone ban from bell to bell for students. So we'll see if that comes out of Harrisburg. And we just simply require, right now, if you recall, we allow students to use cell phones at the high school between classes and at lunch, not during class. They walk into class, they put it in a pocket chart, and they're not to use it during class unless it's specifically written into a teacher's lesson plan that the phone would be a reasonable tool to use within instruction. Otherwise, they're not utilized. So time will tell. We'll see what happens with that piece of legislation. Items that have passed, part of the omnibus school code bill passed with the Commonwealth's budget, were some, for educators, well-known, specifics still rolling out, but for the general public might not be as well known. Literacy instruction was a key element to this omnibus bill, and we're still learning more as things are being rolled out to us. However, the state legislature is now getting involved in curriculum decisions. And elementary, kindergarten through third grade reading, the schools by 27-28 will need to pick from one of the state-approved programs. And that is what you must use in your instruction from kindergarten to third grade. So some programs could come with a significant cost. I don't want to say too much more. We're learning more. And I know Dr. Frank's touching upon it in his presentation in curriculum committee tonight. An item under compulsory attendance that is rolled out with this bill, that students identified as habitually truant are no longer able during a school year to enroll in a cyber charter school. I believe this started effective December 12th, and that habitually truant definition of 6 unexcused days of absence. So a student who's missed 6 days that are unexcused, unless a judge orders that it's in the child's best interest, the child is no longer able to enroll in a cyber charter school in the midst of a year. We will be providing some communications to families and updating our general communications, as there are certain things we must make sure we do as a public brick and mortar school in preparation for that. We must have certain plans in place, certain communications to families that would allow that to hold up in that process. So we have started down that path. Next, couple items under safety and security that were part of the omnibus code bill. Quarterly meetings with school and building leadership. We already meet this requirement. As for years, we've met with our first responders and our building administration on a quarterly basis. We meet, plan, discuss our plans, etc. The IU has used us as a model in that area for quite some time. Safe to say security. Another safety and security element was safe to say something now has in law that schools must disposition life safety tips within 48 hours and non-life safety tips within 30 days. So we're required to go in the system and give, I'll say, feedback or closure to those tips and have to disposition what our findings were, status, and close that out. Just now written in law. Safety and security as well. This is a new piece of legislation that anytime an individual possesses a weapon on school property, schools now in Pennsylvania have 24 hours to notify the parents, students, and staff in that building or campus. We don't have any campus environment. We have 6 standalone buildings. So it would be individuals, staff, families in that building. And when it talks, and this is something we know, if we found a gun, somebody possessed a gun in school, we would be communicating that previously. This now requires it in law. One of the things, actually tomorrow, I'm sending a letter out to our families that provides information regarding this new law and gives a little background that if we have communications under law, a weapon, for example, could be a water gun, a look-alike, that we would be specific and not cause panic. If a student brought in a water gun, a look-alike, technically the law says we have to communicate that, and we would. under this new law, but will maintain student privacy, but say enough to not cause panic among our families. So make you aware of that new piece of legislation as well. Hot off the press this week, our social workers, particularly Anja Boren at our middle school social worker, has worked with the Dixon Foundation a few weeks ago. I was able to attend a meeting upon her request, met with representatives from the Dixon Foundation, and they've come through with that grant of $8,150, helping us put funds to expand our Cougar Closet that is predominantly a high school effort now. We have some at the middle school, but now we'll be starting a kindergarten through 12th grade Cougar Closet, providing hygiene items, clothing for students in need. So we're thrilled, and we thank the Dixon Foundation for that grant money. We will use it wisely. And then I have our upcoming events, entering the holiday break, winter break, and back to school January 5th. I know a lot of excited people that say we're not coming back January 2nd. So we look forward, and our staff and students have worked hard, and we're anxious for them to enjoy their break too. So that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Dr. Kepler. Next, we have our student representative report. I'm pleased to welcome Mia Fair, who's our student council treasurer, who's stepping in for our representative tonight, who's a basketball player. So thank you for being here. Look forward to your report.
All right, so currently for the 12 days leading up to holiday break, we have our 12 days of holiday spirit where there's a different dress up day every day. And then on the 23rd, the half day, we have a holiday scavenger hunt planned for students. And then from there, we're just brainstorming of activities and events to bring up school spirit in the months of January and February. That's
right.
it. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much for being here. Next, we have the Lebanon County Career and Technology Center report. That's Mr. Andrew.
Yes, I attended the reorganization meeting last night, and actually on Tuesday evening, and they reorganized with their executive positions, as well as some notable items going on at the school. They had a successful pilot program. They were one of 6 schools chosen to pilot 2 certifications through the FAA for drone operation and certification. And they now have an approved program and are going to take that same group of students and achieve the 2nd level, which allows them to operate drones on a professional level. So it is pretty neat, and they received some grant funding to help that program along. So that was one notable item from the meeting last night. Other than that, it is business as usual, it seems there. I am new to the committee up there, so I'm just getting used to everything that they currently do. However, some other things they noted as moving forward is currently they don't have a centralized application system to apply to the CTC. So they're looking at changing that and moving towards a centralized application system for students. So they have some big items on the horizon. It looks like they're looking to modernize and update. So that's it.
Great, thank you. Next is Parks and Rec, but I believe you did not have a meeting. Is that correct?
Correct. Our next meeting is January 21st.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Haldeman. Next is the Lancaster Lebanon Intermediate Unit 13. That is me. We last met December 10th at the Lancaster location. We welcomed a couple new school board members to our board. Juanita Fox from Cocalico, Kate Linton from Hempfield, and Jane Ossel from Solenco. I was also appointed to chair the Instructional Technology and Facilities Services Committee. Our former chair did not run for re-election, so I'm looking forward to serving in that role as well there. We did approve the 2026-27 early intervention school calendar. We provided notice that the IU intends to retain Matthew Stem as our executive director for the next 4 years. And then the last item was just a reminder of their new school board director orientation meeting. It's going to be held January 29th down at their Lancaster location. I do encourage everyone to attend. I attended 2 years ago when I was new, and I want to try to attend again, I believe. It's very informative. You get to meet a lot of people, current members, new members, and then their solicitor does a really good presentation It's very, very educational. So that's January 29th, and that will be coming up. And then our next meeting will be held on January 14th in the Lancaster location. Okay, next is the Cougar Foundation report. Mr. Loudermilk.
We only meet quarterly, so there's not been meetings since our next.
Thank you. Mr. Guy of the Public Library.
We did not meet.
And Lebanon County Tax Collection. Mr. Steinmetz, I believe they did not meet either.
That is correct.
And the legislative region report that Ms. Gilligan usually does. I did have a couple of things from PSBA that I can share in her absence. In addition to the bell-to-bell bill that came out of the Senate, Senate Bill 116, healthcare career credits. Senator Argol is putting forth legislation that would allow for high school juniors and seniors to earn up to 2 credits towards their graduation requirements for employment in a congregate healthcare setting, such as nursing facilities, personal home care, assisted living residents, or hospitals. And then the other one was a dual credit innovation grant bill, Senate Bill 974, put out by Senator Scott Hutchinson. That would expand the dual credit innovation grant program to include community education councils, which collaborate with colleges by offering dual credit opportunities. So those were the only other 2 things from the PSBA legislative report. Are there any other reports? Okay. Hearing none, we did have one communication from our former esteemed president, Mr. Koval, congratulating all of you new members and reminding us not to call him with any complaints. So that will be entered into the meeting minutes per board policy, and that is something too we can talk about at some point as a new board, whether we want to continue that policy where those communications are entered into the minutes or not. But as of this point, that is current policy, so that will be entered into our minutes. Is there any other business before the board? All right, hearing none and seeing none, declare the meeting adjourned. We can move right into committees unless anyone needs a
Recording stopped.
minute break or something. Right. Let's move right into curriculum and instruction then. Mr. Guy?
Yes, we have the Camaro USA 250th resolution. So I think it's listed there.
This was something that I had wanted to just get on the agenda. This was a quick draft that I just put together. I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it because I didn't know if there would be interest amongst the board to move forward. I had a meeting recently with the chairperson of the Lebanon County 250th anniversary committee, and they are doing a lot of things in Lebanon County to celebrate this next year. So I thought it would be a good effort for the district to join in that. And in talking with Dr. Kepler, he said he had also attended a few meetings and had some other information that he could share with us as far as what some of the Lebanon County schools were doing.
Sure. Palmyra, been thankful to attend a handful of meetings with a very small group with different representatives from different districts in county. The things that we're committed to and talking through centering first around getting students involved, first in art contests. So the committee brought to us as school personnel the idea of a coloring contest for our elementary students. They've identified 6 historic sites, locations around Lebanon County. And I'm not going to try to sit here and name all of them because I will fail. The one, they've tried to get them around different areas. Closest to us is Ben Noggles Church and the stained glass window and students having the ability. So students would get to pick one of these 6 Lebanon County historic landmarks. Color locally will pick first, second, and third place winners at each grade, submit them to the full committee, who will then select grand prize winners. All student artwork would be displayed at the actual event at the Lebanon Expo on the 4th of July for that event. For our secondary, communicating, working with our art teachers to infuse throughout the second semester now through the end of the year, where students have choice. Can they infuse some America 250th related artwork within the curriculum that they're teaching anyways? and having student artwork from the middle school and high school presented at the Expo Center here in July. And then we started to kick around the idea at Palmyra, and I presented this to the group, that, you know, after state testing, we're late May, early June, that we look at doing some activities throughout those weeks where we're doing a little extra attention to, you know, whether it's read alouds in a classroom at the elementary, where we're learning about our independence and our many of the historical figures around our independence 250 years ago. Even you weren't here, Mr. Guy.
Nope.
And then at the elementary, we're talking about an end of May, almost like a birthday party. Can we celebrate America's birth 250 years later? We're red, white, and blue, and we're waving flags and celebrating our country's 250th birthday. So we're still in the brainstorming phases with that committee, and I'm slowly bringing back to our team to spur up some of those activities. So we're going to celebrate.
If I could piggyback on what Dr. Kepler said, I wasn't here 250 years ago, but I was here 50 years ago. Anybody else here 50 years ago? Okay. 50 years ago, I was
kindergarten.
okay.
I was here.
Okay, good. 50 years ago, I was a 28-year-old history teacher in the Palmyra District, been here for 4 years. And I was brainstorming this afternoon to see what we did 50 years ago. And I did come up with some things. I know the county had worked on, wouldn't it be nice if every school district would write the history of their school district? So I think 5 of the 6 schools did it. We didn't. I don't know why. I was a young, naive, quiet person at that particular time. I didn't challenge it. However, I was a senior class advisor. Now, we didn't have a middle school, high school in those days. It was a junior, senior high. So we had 3 classes. So I took over sophomore year and then moved with those kids to the junior year and the senior year. During the junior year, they came to me and said, bicentennials next year, what are we going to do? So we started brainstorming. Well, one of the things was we could paint all of the fire hydrants like colonial soldiers, but someone beat us to it. So if you went around Palmyra 50 years ago, every one of the hydrants looked like a Revolutionary War soldier. I went to the principal, or the assistant principal, Stuart Schul, at that time. He was a colonel, World War II, European theater veteran. And he said, you know, there's a lot of cemeteries around here, small farm cemeteries. Maybe we could adopt one. And we thought about it, said, well, let's try to find one that has a Revolutionary War soldier buried. And lo and behold, we found one. It was the Nofsinger Cemetery. Problem is, no one knew where it was. It had disappeared 100 years ago. So Schul and I went looking, and we found it. And it was in the woods, completely overgrown. And it was owned by, at that time, the Millard Quarries. So we went to the Millard Quarries and said, would you mind if we restored it? And they said, no, we had no problem. So I took the kids out there, the class officers, and said, do you really want to do this? And they said yes. And we spent a year doing this. We literally had to chainsaw trees. We had to open up a path because the cemetery was at least 75 feet away from the main road. We had to get rid of groundhogs. We had to get rid of tree stumps. And then we found out that we were having trouble, paying for all this. So I went to the North Londonderry Township because someone told me the state had set aside monies for restoration and maintenance of cemeteries. And lo and behold, they had. So they gave us $300 as a grant, and we used that. And basically, we had to take this cemetery down to what the level had been in the 18th century. I think the last grave we found there was in the 1830s. So some of the tombstones were okay, some of them were in pieces. So it was almost like an archaeological dig where we had kids sifting through the debris, finding pieces of tombstones. Now, at that time, there was a cemetery tombstone place on Railroad Street. It was Mark's tombstone place. So I told them, they came out, they took all these pieces, took it back to their shop. They literally glued the tombstones together again, where you could hardly tell they had been broken. They sanded them off, repolished them. Kids came in and rebuilt the wall. We put a fence around it. And it was ready by May of 1976. We found some descendants, the Stauffers, and they agreed to maintain it. And today I actually drove out there to see what it looked like. The fence is now gone mainly because the Stauffers, when they died, were buried there and they extended the cemetery. But it's very nice if you're interested in seeing, if you go down Ridge Road south and look for Nofsinger Lane, and that's where it is. And you can just see what you can do if you set your mind to it. Now, of course, this took a year for us to put it all together. I don't know if you have time to do that, but it is something that I thought was very worthwhile. We got quite a bit of publicity. There was at least 4 or 5 articles in the Lebanon Daily News and the Harrisburg Patriot. So a lot of kids got a lot of recognition for this.
Thank you for sharing. Does anyone else have any comments on this resolution or the idea in general?
Yeah. Mr. Garb, can you tell me, because you're the only one that was there for the 200th anniversary, in one word, but how would you describe just the environment and the excitement about it for our area?
It's 50 years ago.
You did a pretty good job.
Okay. My kids were really excited about that. They were doing this on their own. They spent their summer out there. They spent the winter out there cleaning things up. Before we got the grant, they still needed money, so they went. So I thought it was a very unifying process. And I still have some of those kids 50 years later coming up to me and talking about how they enjoyed it, and especially when we turned it into an archaeological dig and sifting through all the things. That was really a very practical, because no one had ever heard about this before. This was Nofsinger was a young 16-year-old teenager who enlisted in the local militia and served about 7 years in the militia. So a lot of those kids were 16, 17, 18, and they were talking about what it might have been like and what he went through. And they were also fascinated by who was buried there, because we came across a grave which had a totally different name on it. And it was of a child, and there was a lot of speculation what happened. And from what they were able to find out is, in those days when people were moving, sometimes you had an accident or a child simply died, and they went to a local farmer and said, "Can we bury our child here?" So it brought up a lot of interesting, stimulating things for the kids. So that's what I remember the most. As far as what we did, I have no idea.
And that's to my point, that you said it, excitement, and had second and third order effects of education, and also just investment and excitement from students out in the area. And so my take on is 200th anniversary. This is the 250th anniversary, and I read through the resolution. I think it's a great baseline. I'd like to see more inputs from our schools on how we're going to celebrate the 250th anniversary. I like that we are focusing on Lebanon County for the artwork and some of our local historical sites, but we only have one 250th anniversary to celebrate the United States of America. So I think this is a great opportunity for us to collectively across all the different schools to actually be on the same page of talking about America's history, our Declaration of Independence. And so I would like to see more input of what we're going to do, focusing on the 250th anniversary of America in the United States. And I think the things for Lebanon County could be added into it, but I want to see more come out of it or be included of the United States from July 4th. And to Mr. God's point, we use that as a kind of a proofing point that there's excitement there, and we can use those opportunities for students that be involved in something that they may have not had an opportunity before in the last 50 years. That's a joke towards you.
Does anyone else have any thoughts, comments? Is there a general consensus to move forward with some type of resolution to develop ideas to have teachers or staff or community participate in something like this? Is there a general consensus amongst the board to move forward with that?
Yes.
I think the resolution was nice. It's what you do with it after you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
the key.
Yeah. So I think this would just, something like this would just be the first step, but then we want to talk about, what this means in practice. So I kind of see two things. One, let's tweak this to make it look like what we want it to say. This was just a really quick, get it out onto the agenda so that we can discuss it. Not something that I am married to at all as far as the language or what it's in it. So I'd like to look for input from the rest of the board, whether at this meeting or a future meeting, to kind of develop this a little bit more, and then come up with ideas, and perhaps we can look to administration to come up with some ideas to share with us that would be practical for our students to engage in the next 6 months or so, 7 months.
Okay. We have a book approval.
Yeah, so if you look at the attachment, Mrs. Kovalchik, one of our French teacher, she worked through this process. She's replaced an outdated French 2 reader. I appreciate Dr. Richardson's involvement. He worked with her through this process too, and is in support of this. Provided a lot of background here. She actually doesn't need it till spring of 2027 when she's teaching that course, not this semester, but next year. The purpose for now of getting your approval so she can put it in her budget. Our teachers are working on their budgets for next year. And you see a lot of rationale here. She did a good job of describing it. Obviously it's in French, so I have not read it myself. But you can look at some of the main character, obviously a girl named Alice. So the book is called Alice. This replaces the current French reader that is listed in our CMAP. Any questions?
I have a few questions. What is the purpose of the reader? Like the channel, is it to become comfortable with reading French, or is it other reasons?
I would have to go with what she wrote here. So I think it's cultural references, value beyond the classroom, something kids can keep using. It is French 2, so it is that area of learning where I don't know if the kids are fully fluent yet in French 2. At that level, you're teaching a cultural component and, the language.
Just add to that, the purpose of the reader in the world language classroom is to improve proficiency.
Proficiency, all right, great. And then looking over just the notes that we're providing, a list of things to do before she leaves. She did mention the time, but it was a list of things to do before she left, I believe, Paris. Do we know what the list of things that she was looking to do before she left Paris?
This is Alice?
Yes. So first bullet point on additional information, the student makes a list of things she wants to do before leaving Paris.
Got it, okay. Yeah, and I just go to the next bullet. Cultural topics include the city of Marseille, French high school names, comparison. I assume that those are the topics, those things that she wants to do. But I can get more information from her and reach back out.
What is your concern, Mr. Simons?
My concern is that looking over just a review of the book, there are some topics and insights that are just found in general, just Google searches regarding the book that I don't believe are appropriate topics that we need to discuss. If the intent of the book is to become proficient in reading French, then we can find other books that don't have certain topics. And maybe it's very limited and the list is just to attend the different sites, but without understanding what the list of what the 10th grader female wants to accomplish in Paris, and also the other fringe topics that are in the immigration policy that goes into France. And that's quoted in the book as one of the summaries to talk about anti-immigration policy in France. I don't see that there's an intent in that if we're learning to become proficient in French. So at that point, unless we get more details surrounding that, it'll at least be a no for me on the motion. But those are the things I'd like to, in future, regardless of how this one goes, in the future, those are types of details I'd like to see come as information provided, just to ensure that we're staying within the same message that we want in this moving forward with education.
Just so I'm clear, you did a Google search to find out those things. You didn't do a Google search to find out what the list of things was.
No, I said in a quick Google search you can find this, and if I was a parent, I'm going to go to Google first. And if the first thing that gets pulled up on my quick Google search for the 4 minutes I have to take a second to look at it, and those are the first things that I see, I'm going to have questions also where in the administration or within the board also are doing the due diligence to ensure that these things aren't there. So before I give my approval or my vote towards it, I want to ensure that I'm doing the best motion, the best possibility to ensure that our kids are learning French and not learning French policy and political topics.
Did you say that you read some things that you did not feel that were appropriate? Did you say that? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes. So on the basis, it talks about Islamophobia. It discusses the anti-immigration towards Islamic immigrants coming into France. And those are directly quoted within the book. Page 32 to 35 talks about racism and being called derogatory names. So these are things that I understood that this is things in society. However, if the intent is, again, and that's why I want to be clear that the intent was proficiency in reading French, then if that's the case, then we need to ensure that that's what we're on message doing and not including culture that now we're going to have, unless we're prepared to ask those other questions or answer those questions within a French class, those are things that we need to stay away from.
Is this something that will include in the agenda?
I'm sorry?
Is this, are we
I'm
going to
having a hard time hearing
Sorry.
you.
Is this a motion that we'll take to the agenda so that we don't continue to discuss? I think we have our ideas and our direction here. Is this?
So this is something I think we've asked for a little bit more information. So I would say let's come back with a little more information and have it in the next agendas, because she doesn't need it for, how soon does she need this?
Teachers are working through budgeting process now, but we do have a little bit of time.
I don't want to delay her too long.
Yeah.
So is that a reasonable
It
way to do that? Okay, so that's what I would say. Let's bring it back with more information and then we can have a further discussion. I feel like I understand what his issues are, and we all can kind of think about that a little bit more than for the next time it's on the agenda. Thank you.
Comment. Said it's French too. So what age group are we talking about here? How old are these kids? What classes are they in?
We're looking at Dr. Richardson because I know some freshmen take French too.
Absolutely. It can be anywhere from 9th graders through 12th graders can take French too. And just understanding a little bit about how we teach foreign language at the high school. We utilize a system called TPRS. 95% of all instruction from level 1 all the way up to level 4 and beyond is in the native language. So there's very little English that is spoken at all. It's not, if you remember when we were in high school taking foreign language, those conjugating verb charts where you had to learn to conjugate verbs, we're teaching through stories. So I don't know specifically, I can't recall what specifically content specific items that they want to understand. Sometimes it's vocabulary, sometimes it's verb tense. But yes, I am completely aware of the concepts that are shared in the book. I believe truly the intent of Ms. Kowalczyk is to expose students to French culture and how in a vulnerable situation as a 10th grader may be, how they begin to question things that are going on society-wise, political. It's not anything unlike we would do in a government class currently with comparative or a current events class or a pop culture or a global issues class. So I feel confident in the information that we will bring back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion or comments before we move on?
Yes, I'd like to just add that I believe when resources are brought to the board, there should be an expectation of due diligence there are entities, not local, that pursue different agendas than what materials are marketed to educators for. And it's naive to believe that all educational materials are sound, valid, or necessary. And there are forces that are looking to infiltrate what are good, sound educational practice and information with other things that are available to students in other places. I think we live in a time where the school is not the center of the informational world, and we do not need to see ourselves in that regard. Students have opportunities to pursue almost any avenue of thought or interest they want nowadays at their fingertips. I think it's important that we stay in the centralized, traditionally accepted practices and concepts that prove educational benefit. And I think it's important for this body, who is charged with these approvals, to take this as a serious part of our responsibility and look to have more of an understanding of what we are approving rather than a brief synopsis, which really doesn't give us the understanding of what's going on. I think another thing to remember is, if we're teaching language acquisition, is that a cultural class? Is that a world history class? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I think we need to also remember, is our math teacher teaching social studies? Should our language acquisition be delving into political affairs, racism, and other things of that nature? Maybe, maybe not. But I think these are the types of discussions we need to have, we need to be open to, and realize are a part of our responsibility. Thank you.
No one on this board has been more involved in curriculum than what I have. I think there's a fine line that you have to be careful with as far as what's appropriate, what's inappropriate. I'm always concerned about censorship. I always looked at foreign language as you're not only learning the language, you're learning the culture, you're learning the history that goes with it. And if you're learning about the French culture and the French language, then you also have to know some of the problems, because that's in the literature. So I don't have a problem with this. So we'll just see what we come up with. Thank you.
Any other comments before we move on?
Mr. Andrew, what entities were you referring to? I'm curious. If you infiltrate the Palmyra schools.
Well, I'd certainly like to prepare for that request. So if you want some specifics on the entities, I'd be happy to follow up with you.
But you couldn't give me any now.
Well, I think my personal experience with some organizations, I'm aware of things that have happened. I'm not going to cite any specifics at this moment without resources and substantiating information. But I'm entitled to my perspective due to my experiences with some of these organizations, and that's the basis of my opinion.
Like what organizations?
Like I said, that's my end of my comments on this matter.
You said you had experience with these organizations. Shouldn't the public be aware of that?
I think he's answered your question. So why don't we just move on? Is there any other comments?
The administration will prepare for the next committee meeting.
Thank you. I just appreciate that. All right. Why don't we move on to the curriculum presentations, Dr. Frank?
Okay. Kepler brings it up here. First slide. So this is really a follow-up to October and November presentations, really to answer some questions that were posed and to just provide some updates. So I want to ground this presentation in our admin goals for the year as we continue to tell our story, see continued improvement in instruction, and to develop data-informed goals. So I also have an update on attendance based on a question that came up earlier. So the first slide. So this is now 7 months for me here at Palmyra, and I can tell you that all indicators are that we are a great school district. And I intentionally use the word great. Jim Collins wrote a book called Good to Great. And since I came to Palmyra, I've been getting asked by a lot of very good school districts, specifically in Lancaster area where I came from, what is going on in Palmyra? I actually got asked this morning by 2 different districts when I was at my curriculum coordinators at the IU. So there are some great things happening in Palmyra. So I think I put another book up here. If you've read it, James Clear's Atomic Habits, it really focuses on those little changes, that systems improvements to make that 1% growth, get 1% better every day. We've been talking about that as an admin team. How do we keep moving forward? I think our vision statement is there at the bottom, a regional leader. And I think we've accomplished that in a lot of ways, but how do we stay great? How do we continue excellent? So that's been helpful just thinking of that, but we want to maintain the things that have led to our greatness while continuing to improve. So next slide. We have worked together as an admin team really to develop some goals based on the data that we have been presenting to you. So I'm going to start with elementary. And our focus area, I'll call it, is core reading instruction. So at the elementary level, we're focusing on core reading instruction despite the indicators of greatness that are evident. Number 2, 3, and 4 in the IU and elementary reading. We did experience an overall decline in reading and proficient advanced scores, really at all of our buildings from 24 to 25. Despite Northside having the highest grade 3 reading score in the entire IU, we did have a substantial drop in 3rd grade at Lingle between 24 and 25. And finally, despite a 3.6% increase in grade 3 reading in 2025, Forge Road's overall reading score is approximately 25% lower than each of the other 3 elementary buildings. So we know that although there's a lot of great things happening, we have work to do. So we've been meeting as an admin team, really focusing on our goals and looking at ways we can improve. I know last board meeting, Forge Road came up as a topic. So I asked Mrs. Vaughn if she'd be willing to speak because I think it's really important to provide, as we tell our story, some background on Forge Road. So do you mind, Mrs. Vaughn, coming up and giving us a little history since your time at Forge Road?
Thank you for being here this evening.
Sure. I'm going to stand in front because this podium wasn't made for someone that was 5 foot, so I feel like stand in front so you can see me. So yes, I am Stephanie Vaughn, and I am the proud principal at Forge Road Elementary. I was able to meet some of you last week or 2 weeks ago, so it's I'm glad to be back. As Dr. Frank had said, I know data has come up a lot, and Forge Road, our scores are not where we want them to be. And we have focused on that as a building. We spent the beginning of this year really diving into that as a team, that first meeting that we had together as a staff, and was looking at the big picture and kind of where that building has been and where we are now. And so I wanted to give you a little bit of background and context to what we've been doing since I've started. And I only started there in the 23-24 school year in October. And we've been through a lot of changes in that short amount of time. And these are some things that I wanted to just talk to you about that you might not be able to see just directly in those numbers. So when I started in 23-24, my goal coming in as a new principal was to build relationships and focus on the culture and climate of the building. I did not start until October, so unfortunately I wasn't able to start the year due to being held at my prior district for 60 days. So there was an interim principal who got the year started. She was familiar with Palmyra, familiar with Forge, and the workings of the other 3 elementary buildings. So when she came in, she had made some big changes to get that year started based on the needs of what the teachers were telling her, which was fabulous. It was really great work, but it was some big changes. In addition to that, we had a lot of new staff. I already mentioned myself coming in October, so they had 2 administrators to learn. There was a new main office secretary that year. There was a new 3rd grade teacher, a new 5th grade teacher, and a new music teacher, and all of those were 1st year teachers as well, so lots of new staff. Last year was my first year getting to start the school year. Again, my focus was still building relationships, still the culture and climate of the building, But doing a lot of listening and a lot of watching that first year, I also noticed one of the issues that we wanted to tackle as a team was student behavior as well. So one of our big focus areas was student behavior last year, putting some systems and some processes in, referral processes, positive behavior support, incentives for students, similar to what the other buildings were running, but we're not currently running at Forge. So again, some big changes there, but the biggest thing last year, as we were doing all of those things, was staff. We had a lot of staff turnover last year, and so not only are all the positions listed up there, but again, I wanted to give you just some context. So we had a new first grade teacher last year, a second grade teacher, but that second grade classroom actually had 3 teachers in it throughout the course of the year. The first one had retired, we had a substitute in for about a month, and then a third teacher that had finished the year for us. All 3 of our third grade teachers were new last year as well. One of the third grade teachers was a brand new first year teacher. The second one was a veteran teacher, but came to us from out of state, so learning Pennsylvania and also learning Forge. And the third grade teacher, again, we had started the year with a teacher. That teacher had to go out on medical leave and was unable to return. So we had a long-term substitute in there from October through the end of the year. And if you saw on the previous slide, our third grade team, even though they were all new, actually had a rise in some of their test scores, which was phenomenal. They worked extremely well as a team together and had support from coaches. So that was just great to see and a win for them. 2 of our 5th grade teachers last year were new. Again, one of them, a teacher had started the year, left in December, and we had a long-term sub. And the second 5th grade teacher also had a teacher start the year. They left in January, and then we had another sub fill that end of the year. We had a new math coach last year. We had a new ELA coach. We had 2 new monitor aides last year, a speech pathologist for the elementary division in my building, and a new ELD teacher that was in my building as well. And I say some of those things too to point out, our grade 3 teachers and our grade 5 teachers, those are in our tested subjects. So when we look at those PSSA scores, those were the classrooms and those are the students and the things that they were working throughout the year. If you look at the math coach, our ELA coach, and the 2 monitor aides that I mentioned to you, those are staff members that impact the intervention that our students get. So our coaches are the ones that are holding some of those data meetings that we have throughout the course of the year, and they're looking at the students and they're planning the level of intervention that they need. And some of those other staff members then are the ones that are actually working with those students one-on-one or in small groups, then providing them that intervention. So as you know, in any new position, it takes a while to learn that new role and learn the building and learn the people and build the relationships. And also trying to keep up with that intervention and keep up with the curriculum and being on pace. So that was what last year looked like for us. This year is my 2nd year being able to start the school year. And the focus this year has still been the building relationships, especially with all the new staff members and getting them up to speed. It has still been student behaviors, but this year we've finally gotten to the point where we feel like we have some of those foundational things now in place, that our focus this year is the curriculum, is what we're teaching, it's the instruction, it's the assessments. And so when we met at the beginning of the year, we made ourselves some focus areas and how are we going to do this? We've been revisiting those things at every faculty meeting to say, hey, are we still on point? And we're doing a really good job. The teachers are doing a really good job. And as far as new staff this year, we have a new 5th grade teacher, but she was able to start the year with us. And she was actually one of the long-term substitutes that was in our building last year. So it's been a really smooth transition because she already knows Forge, she already knows me, she knows a lot of her colleagues. So now it's just being able to focus on that curriculum and really hit the ground running. We did have a new instructional aide to start the year, which also impacts our intervention. But again, she is someone that was familiar with Palmyra School District, and she also has been able to get started at the beginning of the year as well. We do have some staff at Forge right now that's out on FMLA. 2 of those teachers are tested subjects in grades 3 and 4, but hopefully short stints. And the substitutes that we've been able to get in there, one of them was with us last year and one of those long-term sub roles. So again, that familiarity and just being able to be seamless transition. And just another very short-term one that we have for about a month or so, which will be good. So I just wanted to bring all that up just as a little bit of context and to say on the next slide, already just from the 2.5 years or so that I've been there, I'm already seeing really great improvements. The first one there is with some of these systems and processes back up and running, I have seen an increase in students receiving the necessary supports, whether that be academic supports with those interventions because of those data meetings. It could be maybe some behavioral things or some social things that come up in our SAT meetings. And those meetings are now, again, up and running. We have a core team there that's familiar with those processes now. And so we're seeing a lot more students getting the services they need, which is fantastic. The second bullet point there is seeing a decrease in the disciplinary referrals. I've been out of my office more this year, which has been fabulous. I've been able to be in classrooms. The teachers have been able to teach in their classrooms because some of those other things are more managed, and we've been able to tackle that in just better ways and more efficiently. Consistent use of curriculum and materials. We've had great assistance from our elementary coaches in math and ELA at all the levels that have been pushing into our building more and more to work with our new staff. I've also had support from the other elementary schools and having my staff go over and observe or have virtual meetings with them. Been finding them times throughout the day too to just plan together. They've needed some of that extra time just to get back caught up. And they've been taking that and running with it and doing a really nice job. And last but not least, we've had a more consistent staff, a collaborative staff, and a positive staff at Forge. And I know that because I've been giving them monthly, it's an alpaca survey. It's basically a culture and climate survey. It's anonymous. And I send it out to them every month and I say, tell me what's good, tell me what's bad. And they've been willing to fill that out for me. And again, it's something we've been looking at all of our faculty meetings. And coming up with a plan of say, hey, I see this as an area of need. How can I help you? What do we need to address this so they can keep doing the hard work every day and feeling supported. So I appreciate your time and being able to come and share with you. They're doing a great job and I'm really proud of them and proud to be their principal. You're welcome.
Any questions for Mrs. Vaughn before she sits down? We're going to continue with the reading, but kind of move on to separate.
Thank you.
So Dr. Keppel already mentioned this, but with the new school code updates to evidence-based reading requirements under Act 135, this clearly plays into our elementary goal to evaluate our core reading program. So it starts this March. We just report to PDE the reading instruction curriculum that we are using, and then we have till 27-28. Try not to panic. These are some big things. Adopting a core reading program, that's something I've done in my past. It's a lot. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of training. It's a lot of time and effort. And when I did that in the past, it was what we needed to have that core consistent instruction. One difference with Palmyra is we have some classrooms that are like close to 80, 90, 100% proficient. So the curriculum seems to be working in a lot of places. It might just be those kind of what Mrs. Vaughn talked about turnover. You have, when you don't have a core consistent curriculum material, sometimes it's those veterans that have those materials and are able to excel with it. So we are working as an admin team on our current curriculum. So we have some time to really evaluate that. So I think when we come to you, if we need to come to you in the future to adopt a core reading program, we're going to have data to support this is why we need it. But obviously that's something the state is trying to lead and say this is important, which we agree. Professional development, again, we are actually working on science of reading training. That is what this PD focuses on, that structured literacy. Screeners, we already have something called Acadians in our first, second, and third grade. We do have to extend it to kindergarten, but for the most part, we're already screening our kids 3 times a year. We're already doing the intervention plans, so that's not a big challenge for us. And again, it just ends 2029 with that professional development. So that ends our elementary. Obviously we're going to provide you updates. So just kind of letting you know our goals. The middle school is pretty simple. Yes, please.
A quick question. If you could move back to the last slide. Actually, 2 questions. So just so I'm clear on the timeline here, March 31st, we're going to let PDE know what our current curriculum is.
Yeah, I don't know what it's going to look like. There's a lot of details that have not been provided. I assume I'm going to do some type of Google form that says we are using Journeys modified for science of reading, but we don't know what that's going to look like. But that's the next step.
And what we're currently using is not one of the 3 approved that they want us to move.
There is a list that PD has put out, and it is not on.
Okay, so would we absolutely be required to get it?
Yeah, again, we'll see how it kind of, Virginia did this a few years ago, and their list is only like 4 programs. So they do have a 5th thing that's like fill out this document to provide your evidence that it's working. I'm still hoping in the back of it because I've been through a lot of unfunded mandates in my 27 years. A couple of has too. I know how much this costs. I am fully willing to come to you and ask for that. I just want to make sure it's what we need. So maybe there'll be an option the state will provide to say, hey, if you're Palmyra and you're getting 90% results, and I'm hoping by then we're continuing to grow, maybe there's a way to fill out and document our current program. But there's just so much uncertainty.
And that's far down the road. I just wanted to make sure I understood the timeline.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question.
And the first slide with the percentages. No, before this one. Before this one. No, next one. So here, right, everybody wants to be moving forward. Obviously, I hate to see that you're declining somewhere. But one thing that we find valuable at work is even if you're declining, are you declining less than the market? So again, I don't want to see us go backwards at all. But how do we compare to the IU? Like if the IU overall has declined 8%, but we've declined 2.5%. Not thrilled with the 2.5%, right? I don't think we should settle for that, but we're declining less than the average or the market itself would be, which is a positive, right? That we're clearly doing something better than that. So what is your evaluation as to, while we have declined, are we ahead or behind the pace of the IU?
Yeah, I love that market term, and it does actually apply even later in the presentation. We're going to kind of look at some comparison schools. So that's actually, we've been talking about as an admin team. But from an education standpoint, I compare it to when we give an assessment, we look at a criterion reference. Do the kids meet, are they able to do what's being the standards ask them to do? But we also have norm reference. As a parent, I want to know where my kid compares to other kids. So I think that's very similar. That's why we always put up the IU numbers. Obviously, we're doing very well with our IU. I'll put up some other things later about other comparison schools. We're still waiting because of the move to electronic testing. We know that had an impact. Most schools did go electronic testing, some did not. So we're kind of waiting to see how that shakes out. The high school did not seem to have a dip with electronic testing. Some of our other levels did, K-8. But yeah, no, I like that. And I hope the discussion later will kind of answer your market a little bit. And as we look for those comparison schools, as we continue to set goals.
Okay, I did see that in there.
Okay. Jump in to make sure our new board members, I don't think it was last meeting when we talked about it, that in spring of 2026, online testing is mandated in the Commonwealth. We chose to go a year early to get some experience and learn. So just to make that clear, that online using a device, testing grades 3 through Keystone exams at the high school required from the Commonwealth now.
And Mr. Latimer, the next topic is middle school. Middle school math is a challenge throughout the state of Pennsylvania. I know Mr. Popejoy is here. Middle school math, right? I used to be a middle school principal. I remember before we implemented the new PA core standards in math, telling our teachers, because they went from 80% in math at middle school down to like 30% in 1 year. It was very frustrating, but I remember telling them, don't worry, you know, that it's more rigorous standards. As the kids learn it in kindergarten, first grade, they'll catch up. The problem is COVID hit, and it really kind of stopped a lot of the progress. So middle school math is an endless discussion. And that's where I try to ground this. In the IU, we're still number 2 for math overall. But you recall when we shared the PVAS data, everything's blue, high growth in everything across the district except for 6th grade math. So we want to look into that. We don't want to ignore that data point. We want to look and see, like, what can we do? And then the other part was last month I presented grade 7 math. We were easily the highest last month in the IU. Last year. In 2024, our grade 7 math was dramatically higher than anybody else. But then we dropped down 12.4%. Could be because of computer testing, but that's something we want to look at. We want to look at what caused the drop, what can we do? Again, looking at that system to see if we can keep making improvements.
And would you say the bulk of those kids, where we dropped from proficiency, dropped into basic, the percentage of kids in basic, did that increase or decrease?
So this just reflects proficient advanced as overall. It's kids going from proficient to basic. I can't speak to the below basic.
And if you don't know, that's it. If you can shoot it over to me.
Our goal is to get more into the weeds. So Dr. Maria Miller is going to come in January and talk about our student of concern data meetings. That's where they really get into individual student data. Unlike the online looking at the big picture stuff, but I'll get you that specific answer.
Well, that's right. And I've done some of the deep dives as well. You get the information from.
Okay.
Right, there's you get your all students number.
Yes.
Like to talk about, right? But then you can dig in, and there are some areas that are certainly for improvement. But if you're going to run that in January.
Okay.
And I believe some of that was in the presentation I sent you.
Yes.
More deep dive into those numbers.
Those advanced students, So looking at those numbers are really what our building teams, our coaches are really working hard.
I had a few questions like that, but I wanted to kind of wait to the end.
Okay. So next, the question came up when we presented high school attendance data. How are the other buildings doing? We do look a lot at high school because those kids kind of choose to come to school or not. Elementary is a little trickier with attendance. It's still part of our goal, but we did want to look at middle school. And what you see is the same trend. So the middle school had a new social worker in 24-25, and right from the start, Mr. Pope joined his team, worked with that social worker to really work on those students who had high numbers of unlawful absences. So that 23 data of 464, that's for a trimester of unlawful absences, that dropped to 326 during the 24-25 school year. He was sharing that in one of our admin meetings, and Dr. Richardson said, I love that. So he implemented this year, and you saw that last month, first marking period, dramatic reduction. So obviously this does show the value of a social worker. If kids are not in school, they're not learning. If we can't get them here, we can't teach them. So we're definitely seeing some impressive results there. Wanted to share then, middle school has the same trend as high school, just a year earlier. And then finally to high school. And this one, it has been fun because Dr. Richardson, he likes data just as much as a lot of us. So we actually have a new data point, building level scores. So this is not something the state really wants the community, the state looking at. It's meant to be for teacher evaluations. So they kind of hide it. It is public. You can go on to the link there on the educational effectiveness site. But it's one spreadsheet of 2,735 schools. So Dr. Richardson was able to go through and just pull out the high schools, which you can see there are 577 high schools in the state of Pennsylvania. Palmyra High School has the 10th highest school in the state of Pennsylvania. So that 92.2 Obviously, those high school teachers, that goes in their evaluation, which is awesome. But really gets you like thinking about that, those comparison schools. So another thing is we're talking as an admin team, when you look at free reduced meals, it's not always clear. You know, Hershey's isn't that much lower than ours when you look at free reduced meals. So what is it? So we start talking what other numbers are out there. So this building level school score does have a challenge indicator based on poverty. So Fox Chapel came up, we know it's a wealthy school district, but their challenge indicator is 0.3. So their score has really no multiplier because they don't have a lot of poverty. Palmyra is at 1.3. Our neighbor at Lebanon School District is 3.99, just reflecting the amount of poverty in Lebanon. But beyond that, we looked at those top 10 scores. So we know Palmyra has the lowest per pupil spending in that top 10, one of the lowest in the states. But we also looked at median income, because when you look at somewhere like Lower Marion, number 2 highest score out of the building score, their median income is $157,710. So those households are typically valuing, college education first. A lot of those kids come through and they feel that's their only option because of the families they come from are typically educated. Ours is the lowest of the top 10 at $80,495. Mount Lebanon was another district that was discussed with comparison schools. It's $117,000. So, just thinking through what does our community, when you think about that market value, what does our community want, for our students too? So really get you thinking about a lot. So the next slide is kind of how we use that to develop a goal, because we talked about rigor, but we really want to define how do we ensure that all PAHS high school students have access to rigorous coursework in line with their future goals. So there is one data point that can help us with this. There's a data point called rigorous course of study, and that reflects how many of your students are taking what the state defines as a rigorous course. So state defines advanced placement, obviously, as a rigorous course. They also define college enrollment, college and high school dual enrollment, and CTEs. So Ambo-Cleona has the highest score in the IU at 80.3, but you can see their AP is very low, but their college enrollment is high, and their CTE is high. So I talked to Dr. Heisler this morning at Vanville-Cleona. Their CTE is high because of their ag program. So they don't have any more CTC kids because they don't have the spots, just like we don't have the spots at CTC, but they have their own in-house ag program that increases that CTE option. If you look at Manhattan Township and Hershey, those two schools have high advanced placement. So again, a lot of college focused, again, the median income would be higher in those districts. They're also the only two with higher US News rankings than us, which is a lot really focused on advanced placement. Palmyra, I think, has a healthy mix of advanced placement, college enrollment, and CTE. When you look at Hershey's lower college enrollment, lower CTE, and Township's low college enrollment and lower CTE. So again, using this goal to reflect, on what we want to work on, but really too, what Dr. Richardson's worked on a senior exit survey added a lot more to it. So we really can measure how are we preparing each child for their future. Are we preparing them for that, future goal that they have? So I think the next was questions, right? Okay.
Dr. Frank, I have a question. Just jumping back to the elementary.
Yep.
The goal of notifying parents of reading deficiencies and providing reading intervention plan. Can you
Yep.
elaborate on the reading intervention plan? What that might look like?
Yeah, so this isn't that far off to what we're doing and looking at our elementaries. But essentially, when you give a screener, you are identifying, similar to what Mr. Loudenberg said, you're finding out if kids, where they are on the standard. Are they, reading on grade level? But then you're also looking at that norm reference, where is a child compared to peers? But when you identify kids as being below that reading standard, then you create an intervention plan. So an intervention plan typically is going to be, so the language I'm used to is called tiers. So tier 1 is all students. So every kid gets this. Tier 2 are some kids, get additional support to help them to build up their goals. And tier 3 are just a few students. So these intervention plans would say, we want to get 100% of our kids reading on grade level by 3rd grade. So Sally is identified in kindergarten as being a little behind in reading. Here's the plan we're putting in place. Typically, it's going to involve meeting with a reading specialist, using intervention materials. I think we're already doing that. But moving forward, just making sure that we have all the communication in place, a good system in place. We are looking at our data systems that can maybe help us with this to make it streamlined. Any other questions?
I had a few questions. I didn't want to jump ahead though. I was thinking more, so you're tracking and use the KPIs with truancy and showing us those numbers. The data that I've showed you or sent you kind of highlighted that we have been consistently dropping amongst our advanced scores. And so when those were combined with our proficient, they didn't really show a drop. When you isolated them out, then you could see a consistent drop amongst our advanced scores. So what are we doing, I guess, to address that specifically? And then I would like to see more KPIs around that. I think you and I talked briefly about the AP courses and just looking at knowing how many students are we, or how many AP courses are we offering? How many students are enrolled in those? How many students are taking the exam? How many students are achieving a 3 or higher? Those kind of things that we can measure and track. I would like to see some of that too, so that we can figure out how to stop the advanced decline. Because for now, it still looks good and we're still doing great. And so much of this is so good. But I just want to be proactive with that to make sure that that's addressed before it continues to go in that direction. And I think just my overall comment is this, it seems to be more of a reactive approach in a way. And can you talk more about kind of the higher level proactive approach we have? Is there a broad-based approach where we're looking at does each principal meet with their, after these scores, meet with their staff, they come out with lessons learned, they come out with an approach? It sounded like Forge was doing something kind of like that. Do all of our buildings do that? I kind of want to know kind of a higher level approach of how this is done, more than just well, this doesn't look good, so here, we're going to try to do something here. Or kind of do you understand what I'm kind of getting at? Like, what's our broad-based approach to keeping us great and improving the areas where we see a little bit of decline?
Yeah, and you're right. A lot of it has been big picture student learning data that is public. So obviously we're getting into some demographic data, where we are talking, just thinking about the 4 types of data. The school processes, I think, is a lot of what you're referencing, and that's probably the most important thing. And I think that's what leads to some of the inconsistency, because it's across 4 elementary buildings. All of our school processes are not the same. So that's something that's part of the reading goal that we're going to look at, is that consistency. Advanced learners is something we have talked about. I was able to put both your presentations in with our curriculum principal group, so it is something they've been able to review. But I think that's going to come out too as right now I've been seeing these presentations as kind of big picture, what the state is putting out. It is a little reactive in that we have to kind of wait. Like, building level scores literally just came out a few days ago. I think the day we met 2 weeks ago. So it is a little reactive, but it also helps. That's part of our process. Where are we, compared to others? So what I want to show you, and again, being new here, I want to see myself, but what's our process for the student of concern meetings? And student of concern isn't just kids who are below grade level, below basic. What are we doing for those proficient kids who are not growing the way we want, those advanced learners too? So that's our goal in January and February, is to get into some of the individual data, to go beyond the big picture stuff and get more in the weeds, I guess. So I'll probably have more experts come up to do that, because I am not in the weeds. I'm in district office pulling a lot of stuff, saying, hey, let's speak to this, let's get going. And then they're doing a lot of the boots on the ground stuff. So yeah, I would say these first 3 months have been presenting the big picture things, kind of responding to some questions, but I'm hoping that we can provide some of those answers moving forward. does that help for now? I mean, it gives direction.
Yeah,
I come here looking for direction too. You've been providing that each month, which is why I'm returning with this. So this is helpful.
Right, yeah, I would just like to see more measurable KPIs where we can track, like I said, the advanced students and make sure that we're keeping those scores where they need to be.
I wrote that KPI and I'm embarrassed. I still haven't figured out what it is.
Key performance indicators.
Key performance indicators. Thank you. I thought it would come to me if I kept looking at it, but okay. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments?
Yes, so to piggyback on Jill's comment, I would like to see the number of AP courses we offer versus other districts in the IU. As I was working with my daughter on her college application, the Common App, we had to get some information from the school that you have to enter in there. And I was just curious as to how, she's never taken any, but I was just curious as to how many AP courses we offered. The number seemed lighter than I would have expected. And so long term, I'd like to see how, what else we could be offering here to build on that segment. The kids who are proficient, what can we offer more for them? So, but again, that could be in the January meeting, like I don't have any particular time.
Yeah, Dr. Richards and I have spoke directly about that. Following up, as we look at that rigor goal, are we making sure we prepare those high achievers, you know, for those goals they have, those college goals? And honestly, one of the things these organized counselors on, AP provides something different on that college application versus, you know, hack English, for example. College and high school versus AP, it's just different. My son focused on AP because he wanted a transcript to look nationally. He wanted every school in the nation to be able to say, I know what AP is. Whereas not school, he's in Boston, they don't necessarily know what honors is in Palmyra or what hack is in Palmyra. So it's really educating those kids, because we have some kids who could be wasting their time in AP when they should be in college and high school. We have some kids who are wasting their time in college and high school when they should be in AP. We have some kids that aren't taking either, for whatever reason, not taking rigorous courses. You know, I've been talking to kids who are going, say they want to be doctors, nurses, and they're not taking AP Bio. So that is data we've gotten into. We're looking at our PVAS projections, and we're seeing we have a lot of kids who are projected to do well who aren't taking it. But with that being said, our AP success rate is extremely high. The kids who do take it do really well on their scores. So our goal would be to follow up, you know, to continue to update you on those goals this year. But I know that's something this team can do with free.
Okay, thanks.
So, I have just one question. You brought something that was interesting. You said Dr. Richardson at the high school uses exit surveys to, I believe you said that to see if the students feel that they're equipped, leaving high school, equipped for their goals, following high school. Is that correct with you?
We're not doing that now, right? Not currently. Yeah, it would be.
Oh, developing, okay, okay.
We do use an exit survey now, but it's not that robust. Am I right?
Yeah, the purpose of our current senior survey is more of just where you're going to college or university, so we can make sure we send your transcripts. Not a whole lot of like reflecting on how do you feel high school prepared you, those kind of, I think they're data points, that perceptual data that we're interested in getting from our students. So we're in the process of developing that so that we can give it to our first class of students in May or June.
Right, and just where my mind's at, because I know there's consideration about with the CTC, and there's very limited spots for CTC.
Yes.
And so the exit surveys were indicating that we want more CTC. It just bolsters our position of saying like this is what right now the current temperature environment for the high school.
Yeah, and that process is underway, and that's really, I'm really proud of the statistic you show with the balance, because our students who go to CTC, and I don't know if they shared this with you, Mr. Loudermilk, when you go, are highly successful. And we just can't get enough students there. So we have a process of identifying, but that doesn't mean that there also aren't students who are going to go into the career technical area who choose not to go to CTC. So we have some, I had an IEP meeting with a student today who wants to be a mechanic, but has no interest in going to CTC. That's why we have our new co-op program and our internship program that can give them opportunities to experience that. And we're looking really hard at our AP population. We sometimes have and one of the things that we're doing proactively in January, right around scheduling season, is we are going to have an evening with parents just highlighting our rigorous courses, our AP courses, because I believe we have some parents of juniors and seniors and even some sophomores that maybe the course selection is happening and parents don't really know what they're signing up for. So they're not being pushed to go into AP classes. Because we have students who have graduated who go on and do very well in college who choose not to sign up for our AP courses. So we've got to tease that out a little bit. So hopefully bringing people in and highlighting our 15 AP courses that we have, and I believe our 5 college and the high school courses that we have, and just making sure parents are aware of them, as well as giving them data that says, you would do really well in AP biology. Your testing history shows that. You may want to think about that. We've generated those reports and we'll target mailers out to the parents of those students.
Thank you.
One other question, just on the data point. For truancy in the middle school, are there any indicators of why the truancy is there? Any indicators of lack of transportation, lack of just investment, wanting to be there? Anything in any direction?
I can't answer
Yeah,
that.
I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm just a general question. I was just wondering.
I would say my number one thing we struggle with is mental health.
Mental
Without a doubt. Those are 3 of the toughest years of life. So I look at my medical numbers, my placements, my mental health, the kids we can't get in buildings, and that is probably without a doubt, shadow of a doubt, our number one struggle with school is that mental health. They want to be adults, but they don't know how to be adults, and the frontal lobe can't have them be adults. So it's that struggle of all of those things kind of get together, plus the increased rigor of middle school life versus elementary. So I would say that's a number one of our struggles.
Thank you.
Having a social worker that is predominantly at the middle school, that's been a huge help, because she has been our fingerprint on those kids who are truant, and helping them and assisting them, and just being a person to connect with each and every day. This work was huge. So, yes.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Just a follow-up, Mr. Popejoy, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Would you say you see a trend at all in the number of students being absent or truant, or would you say it's been more consistent percentage who have a lot of truancy, or is it changing in your opinion where this is affecting more of the students?
That's a loaded question. I would say since COVID, and mental health has been a much larger factor. The expectations and the increase, unfortunately, of social media has been something we have been battling tremendously in the middle school, because kids don't get to unconnect. They are connected 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And so that does spill into truancy. Would I say the number of truant students is larger? Not necessarily, but the number of truancy within that set of students is more significant, and larger amounts of days of lost instruction. Does that make sense?
Yes, I was kind of seeing
Yeah.
your opinion on the trend. Do you see like the same group just being out more, or do you see more kids being?
I don't think it's a larger, broader group. I think it's more a group with a larger amount of time that they're struggling with, and thus is lost instruction, thus lost, and then they just continue to pile that stuff on top, which gets harder. And there's a lot of difference. Like, I don't see that high number of truancy in 6th grade, simply because mom and dad are still very key components in at 7th and 8th grade. 7th is probably the strongest and hardest year of school. That's where it kind of starts to settle. And as they get closer to going to high school, they get a little better in the spring of 8th grade. So there's a study there to be found from 6th to 8th.
Sounds like it.
Sure, if someone has the time to do it.
Thank you.
Public comment?
I really tried not to have a comment tonight, but you hit my heart with the 250. I'm very involved in very different things in educating America about our nation, and Then you backed it up with the French class, which I didn't have a chance to do anything, look at it. And I figured it's French, it's okay. Then you had a thing there about the Muslims. So my first thing was I want to offer my services or help with anything you do with the community. I have classes, I have some curriculum. I mentioned Dr. Frank a while ago for the Constitution. I didn't get it in time. But I'd be happy to serve in the U.S. And the two is America's in a struggle. We all know that. And my concern, just like it was with the medieval class, we put that up there. We have Muslim. Like, we have an issue with Muslimness in America. And it's little Palmyra, but I care about our little kids just like we do America's kids. So I want to make sure that the teachers are teaching the concepts. And I have been aware of lately some teachers sharing their opinions. And that's where it gets nervous-ing to me, because I don't want my kids being directed by a teacher of what to think. And none of us do. We all want the teachers to teach the facts and the concepts and let the kids discuss it and have that discourse, whatever. So I am a little concerned about, we want the kids to know more about America, why we are great, why America is so good. And we've lost that, I believe, in the country. We don't have to lose it here. So I also think that maybe an essay in addition to an art project of what makes America, what makes us so special, why? And there's heroes we don't know about, there's Black heroes we don't know about that were like fundamental in why we made it through. And the Pilgrims and what they went through, and I'm talking about Larry's stuff. So, I mean, I just would like to see us really lock in on that America stuff, and then that'll kind of blend out to the class, and we can deal with that. But I'm very concerned about the Muslim issue in America, and I'd like to see it be carefully monitored in Palmyra. So that's all. But again, this is where my heart is with this America stuff, so forgive me for that. But thanks. Thank you.
Okay, we're finished.
Okay, next we'll move into staff and administration. Mr. Latimer.
Yeah, staff and administration. Number one item is board policy, first reading. Recommend to approve the first reading of the following board policy. And this will be a motion at the next meeting. So it's policy 209.1, food allergy management.
So I'll jump in, Mr. Latimer. And this is a policy that the school district has not had to date. It is a policy that we've met for years. We've had our process and procedures developed within our nursing staff. We've recently finalized the administrative regulations that go with this policy. So we are in total compliance with the policy and have been. Is literally updating and making sure we have a policy as the backbone to meet what we're doing within our process and procedures as we care for kids with allergies.
I did note in footnote number 5, reference policy 210.1. And on our website, we do not have that policy. So we could take that out. And I did make sure I looked at the website, not just Board Docs. 210.1.
Thank you, Mrs. Forston.
So you're saying in your comment about administrative regulations, the end of this policy references those addressing all of the 10 components. So you're saying you have those done and drafted?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Item number 2 is a board policy review. Review of the following board policy 006, which refers to, it says here meetings on the agenda, board specific.
So I asked for this to be on the agenda. I had gotten some feedback about, in particular, the agenda notifications section of this policy. It talks about the agenda together with all relevant reports shall be provided to each school director at least one day before the meeting. Just some concern about each member, especially those that work full time, being able to fully process all of the materials. Some meetings, there are a lot of attachments and a lot of lengthy things to review. So to have a chance to fully digest all of that before the meeting So I did a survey of quite a few districts across the state, and it was quite a range of it from a week to 3 days to 5 days. So talking to Dr. Kepler is that perhaps there is a desire to move towards a 3-day notification so that we would have materials 3 days before a meeting. So that would give us a little bit more time to digest everything. And so that would require the administration to kind of shift their preparation time by 3 days. But that was one of the reasons I wanted to bring this policy to the meeting tonight. And then also to talk briefly about possibly tweaking when the committees meet. I know we're going to have a lot of buildings and grounds issues the next few months. And so giving us some flexibility in when those committees meet, perhaps just a discussion about that. And then we can certainly talk about other items in this policy if there's other issues of concern. Dr. Kepler, do you have any comments about those?
Sure. So just to highlight for you, page 2 is the agenda notification scenario. It currently says 1 day before the meeting. On page 3 is an area that I bring to you as for consideration. Our language on page 3 in this policy under additions to the agenda was updated in the last adoption of this policy. It allows for 4 reasons for adding an agenda item after that 24 or within the 24-hour period before the meeting. Recent court case kind of tweaked this a little bit. In the initial interpretation of this, that majority vote that allows a board to add a matter of business to an agenda within 24 hours of a meeting, if the majority of the board voted on it at the meeting, you could add it and then act upon it. Initially was interpreted as it had to be in one of the 3 other reasons why you could add something. It was an emergency. It was a business arising within 24 hours prior to the meeting that was de minimis in nature and did not involve expenditure of funds, or business raised by a resident or a taxpayer during the meeting that the board felt they had to take action. Those are the 3 reasons you can do that under law and under this policy. What really changed is that majority vote was initially interpreted as it had to be one of those 3 reasons. That's technically no longer the case. Under case law, you as a board, under a majority vote, could sit here on a night of a board meeting, add something to the agenda, and vote on it. That is not my recommendation. My recommendation is out of transparency. That would be a very rare occurrence. But wanted to point that out to you for that new case law, if you will, that challenged that. Commonwealth Court ruled in favor of the complainant. PA Supreme Court reversed that decision and ruled and said it's a 4th standalone reason that a board can add something. So you can do that the night of a meeting and add something. Not my recommendation, but I wanted to point out to you that new change. It would not require a change in policy, but and again, I think we administratively are comfortable with the 24. It would be a pretty rare occurrence that something would happen that we'd have to add a matter of business.
Yeah, I personally think it's important for flexibility. I think that's great, but I think I agree with you, Dr. Kepler, as a matter of procedure and policy. Typically, I think it's in the greater interest of transparency to the public, so they have an expectation of what is on our meeting agenda for that evening, to not have it changed at the last minute. But I do think, sometimes there are occasions where something might need to be added, but again, I think that should be the exception rather than the rule, in my opinion. So those were kind of the major points of this policy that I wanted to discuss tonight. Notification, and then the potentially changing when the committees meet. And then I guess we'll have to also address, if we do decide on the next agenda item to go with the 1st and 3rd Thursdays of the month, we will have to change this in the policy here as well, because it currently references that we meet on the 2nd and 4th Thursdays. So this policy will need to have a few adjustments depending on both that decision and then what we decide tonight as far as how much advance notice we wanted materials, and then do we want to change how committees meet? And then, the standing order of business, if there's any interest in changing any of that, certainly talk through that. I know some districts do a moment of silence in their agendas. I don't know if that's something we're interested in adding, that kind of discussion. So does anyone else have any comments? Why don't we take it in order of how it appears in the policy? Agenda notifications. Does anyone have any thoughts or comments about changing that to a 3-day, 5-day, 7-day? It seems that the administration would be supportive of a 3-day advanced provision of materials, but does anybody have any thoughts, comments about that?
Just to be clear, the 3-day agenda will be available on Monday.
Yes. And all the materials and supporting materials would be available to us on Monday so that we would have time to digest all of that instead of just 1 day prior.
So I would 100% agree with that, because does get, your life is busy. There are times when it's the day before and there's like a lot of stuff we have meetings. So if we could have that 3 days, I would appreciate that so much.
I mean, I know the administration does a good job of getting a lot of it to us earlier than that, but there are times where it does come in. I'll check it at the last minute and then all of a sudden there's all this new stuff. So it would be helpful, I think, in my opinion, to have it a little bit more advanced. Does anybody else have any thoughts, comments about that?
So that would be by Monday, correct?
Well, I want to clarify, we're talking, first of all, let me say administratively, we're not concerned with in general saying 3 days in advance. We can meet that. It just changes our planning schedule. So by close of business Monday, it would be 3 days. Is that general rule? We would be able to meet that. The question I posed to the board is on the hiring side is the only scenario that I have a concern that if we have a cutoff and we're providing to you the staffing and administration consent agenda Monday, 3 o'clock, Tuesday, Wednesday are days that we're missing where we could be hiring in the final phases of offering a job, getting an acceptance of a teacher, a paraprofessional, a custodian, that if we don't get them on that agenda, we're going another 2.5 weeks till the next agenda is to discuss that piece. What's your palate as a board for giving leeway on that one item only? It's the only concern I have.
Would it be feasible to note that? So on the Monday when it comes in, there's a prospective situation and we may get a decision on Tuesday or Wednesday. I think, information like that would be absolutely helpful in those scenarios.
We can produce a draft consent agenda for the personnel. You're receiving what we have to date and any potential adds that we're aware of.
I mean, we're not changing the 24-hour notice to the public.
Correct.
We're just changing when they provide material to us as a board. So I would be in support of that idea, is just to give us a heads up that this might be changing, and that's a very small amount of information in my opinion compared to, some of these agreements that you've attached and we have to be
sure.
So I'd be in support of that.
And I would assume that would be the exception rather than.
Right. Correct. And it's pretty, when you say exception, Mrs. Swindell, I just want to make sure it happens every board meeting. We're going up to the hour with personnel every Wednesday afternoon, I promise you. So it's an exception,
It's the last.
but it's going to be an exception every meeting.
It's always the last attachment.
It is, yes.
Wednesday, usually Wednesday.
The HR team is working to the end. We just know how valuable it is to get good educators in front of kids, and every 2 weeks matters. So
And just for framing, I mean, we could add that as an exception, like with the exception of hiring.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we could even add to the policy if there's a palette for that, with the exception of staffing or hiring or however you want to put that. Or we can just have it more informal and understanding. I don't, whatever you kind of defer to you.
Okay, I will, as we update, bring back to committee, as I believe we'd have to bring this back to committee, not be prepared for a motion, that we can add the 3 days, and I'll look at penning some language to see where we land on the exception.
Any other thoughts on that?
Just, Dr. Coker, do you know if there's any constraints on the material or the resources that we see being provided on the website also with the Zoom link? In terms of storage, or am I missing the ability to at least have that on for that current meeting, whether it's on in an archive status, or can we at least have it for that meeting and then have it, the ability for it to be taken down?
Sure. So what I'm hearing you say right now, that this district has had a long-standing practice of during committee that an attachment is locked until presented publicly. It doesn't have to be that way. During the vote, it's clearly a public document on a regular meeting and visible to the public before the meeting when it goes live. The will of this board, you want attachments that you're going to review for the first time in committee. If you want them unlocked and visible to the general public that 24 hours before a meeting, that can be done. That's not an issue.
So, but there is no constraint in terms of like, we can't, there's not enough storage.
No, it's all embedded right in Agenda Manager, just like you see it.
Okay, all right. I'm not looking to say let's make a decision today. I'm just understanding the possibilities.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good. So I think we're good with the notifications, 3 days, and I'll work on language with an exception.
Okay. The next substantive item would be order of business. Is there any appetite to make any changes there?
That begins on the bottom of page 2 into page 3.
Like I said, some districts have a moment of silence. Some districts have 2 opportunities for the public to speak, one where they can speak about anything, and then one where they can speak only about items on the agenda. I don't know, if anyone has any thoughts about making any changes to that, or we just want to leave it as we have it in the policy. I just thought as long as it's on the agenda for tonight, we might as well talk about it, and we can move through that.
My thought has it ever been a problem? I don't think it's been a problem. Therefore, if it's not a problem, why do we want to fix it? Leave it alone.
I just thought since it's here, we might as well talk through it and make sure no one has any underlying concerns with it and wants any changes. So I'm not hearing any appetite for change, so we can move past that. The next thing Dr. Kepler already mentioned, majority vote, the case that came down. Really, the next substantive item I saw was page 5, talking about
the majority vote.
Yeah, we discussed that with the court case. Did you have any other thoughts about that, or any?
Yes, I guess it's been a while since I looked at this segment. Like I feel like that's something that we should take out. I agree with you. My major concern with that is the public has you're springing that on the public. They have no opportunity to speak on that. They're not aware of it, the agenda. So overall, I feel like we should just remove that particular piece.
I understand, and in principle, I agree with you, Mr. Loudermilk. The challenge by doing that, you're eliminating options 1, 2, and 3. If there's an emergency that you need to allocate resources because of an emergency, you don't have that ability to respond to that. I think it's just the understanding that as a board, you're functioning, that it's not a 4th item. You're functioning that the majority votes addressing the first 3 items. So we could technically, I guess.
Oh, but I think maybe I misunderstood you. I thought you said at the end there they determined the Pennsylvania Supreme Court determined majority vote was a unique 4th option. It had been interpreted previously that it tied to one of those 3.
Yes.
That was reversed, and it is its own standalone piece.
Correct.
If you had an emergency, if you had to do something, that would still be covered under emergency.
But you still need that majority vote as a board to add something to that agenda between Wednesday's release and Thursday's meeting. Even if it's an emergency, de minimis, non-expenditure, or a resident or taxpayer item during the meeting. You still have to stop, take a vote to add something to the agenda. So I think my feeling to the board is that language is necessary. If you were going to do something, my recommendation would be not to remove it, but to state, that this board will function majority vote as an element of the first 3 causes and not a separate 4th actionable item to add something to the agenda.
Oh, well, that Right, if you're gonna specify out, I think you'd be in compliance with the law. That would be fine. I would just be, I'm very worried the public would not have the ability to, they would lose their voice on matters like that.
Agreed. Is there any desire of the board to do any language change there? Or just a general understanding that as a board, you're not intending to use that as a standalone item?
Any thoughts from anyone? I hear Dave, you say that you would like a language change. Does
If we
anybody else?
added the language that would be it would have to tie to one of the first three, that we would be specifying that out.
Well, I think there's good reason it's been added the way it's been added to the law and interpreted by the Supreme Court, which is also certainly not a conservative leaning body by all accounts. So I think the fact that the ruling came the way it does is for probably good reason, that there were cases where this was a necessity for a school board to do something important they needed to do. So my only concern, I understand the transparency piece, and as a part of normal practice, I couldn't agree more that that should not be the operations. However, I get wary when something has been acknowledged by the Supreme Court as valid and important enough to now be part of the school code that we would, think that we have the understanding to change that or override that. So I think that if there isn't any complaints currently that this process is being abused, I don't know that we have any transparency problems in that regard. So I would be hesitant to make changes at this point to something that obviously has been litigated out and currently is important enough to now have a new way that this is being adopted into practice.
It basically comes down to the principles of the governing body.
It was interesting in the PSBA review of the court case, they did support the ability to have this fourth exception. They said they supported the authority of the school districts to act quickly on important issues, and that provided greater flexibility, but it did not eliminate the need for transparency and adherence to all Sunshine Act requirements. That was the position of PSBA. So I think I would kind of lean towards Mr. Andrew in that I think we should make it clear that this is not something we would typically utilize, but refrain from going so far as to make a language change. Anybody else have thoughts on that? So
Hearing none, I'll leave that language alone.
Okay. But I think we're all in a consensus, it seems, that we would be hesitant to use that fourth exception. Okay, and then next would be committee of the whole workshop meetings. Is there any appetite to adjust that in any way? Do you want to talk about how you would?
So you'll note that we traditionally have the process, and we're unique in having 2 voting meetings a month. I will tell you administratively, we love it, again, from that hiring perspective. Many schools have to wait a full month before they have a voting meeting. Having 2 brief personnel action items is huge. We follow each of those by committee. Traditionally, the first meeting of the month, we run buildings and grounds, finance, staffing, administration. Second meeting of the month, like tonight, we do curriculum instruction, staffing, and administration. Policy in front of you says, it references in that the 4th Thursday, sometimes finance can be held. And we've run the practice of, if it's a 4th Thursday and it's a finance item, it's under staffing and administration anyways. Well, the discussion for you is, do you like this structure? Would you like to have a structure, Mrs. Martin said, a lot of discussions coming up with buildings and grounds. Do you run, or do you create a policy that basically states that you have your voting meetings, 2nd and 4th Thursday, followed by committee of the whole? Committee of the wholes can consist of finance, buildings and grounds, curriculum, staffing, administration. And board president policy works with the superintendent to build agendas, and that allows you under those committee structures to build the agendas necessary and timely for the actionable items that are before the board. Simply saying committee of the whole, and we have those committee items. I believe I would recommend it's still broken out into those sections, but it would allow this board to say on 2 nights a month, these are the committees and action items we need to address.
Once again, on this board for 10 years, sometimes it's inconvenient, sometimes it isn't. I don't think it's broken. Just leave it the way it is. Because we start making changes because we think there's a problem, and then down the road, we find out there's another problem. So in this case, I just say, leave it alone.
I just noticed a lot last year, we were pushing certain items, mostly building and grounds items, into other committees that really didn't belong in, but we needed to make quick decisions on. So that was kind of what made me think about this going forward, because we are going to have a lot of building decisions in particular, to just give us a little more flexibility in how we would schedule committee meetings. And that's kind of where I was coming from. But if there's not, consensus among all of you to change that, if they feel more like Mr. Guides, and I don't have a problem with that. It's just I was hoping to kind of just streamline things a little more so that when the public sees an agenda item on a committee agenda, that they understood, yes, that's definitely a finance issue. That's definitely a buildings and grounds issue. And it's not a buildings and ground issue that was squished into a finance committee meeting because we didn't have buildings and grounds that week. So that was where that was coming from. So if anyone else has any thoughts about that, if you want to leave it alone, or if you want to change that, now's the time to kind of speak about it.
I agree with you. I often open up the committee meetings, and then you go through staff and administration, and the fourth item is a finance issue. Now I go through it all. So it's not a problem for me, but for the public, well, I'm not interested in curriculum. I don't click on that and see there's staffing in there somehow. So I do like that. My only question would be at the end of every in minutes in the regular meeting, we say the next meeting of buildings and grounds will be held on a date. And if we're going to, I like the idea, right? It's a very way to streamline it is we decide prior to the meeting which committee meetings we need that week. That makes a ton of sense. Again, just for the public and transparency, are we required to say when the next committee will meet?
I don't know that it's an requirement that I'm aware of.
I like that, as opposed to somebody coming and saying, hey, I've been watching these meetings and you have not had a finance meeting in 6 weeks, 3 meetings.
I totally understand what you're saying, and but to me, this is pie in the sky. I'm looking at the public right now, all one of them. I just don't really think it makes any difference. Now, we can spend another half hour talking about it, but in the long run, it doesn't make any difference. Sorry.
What's administration's perspective on the issue?
I think to a degree it's semantics, but I also understand if we're going to say we're talking about a finance item on the fourth Thursday, we should have a finance committee. I think that's telling the community what we're doing. Nobody's hiding anything. That's not the case. It's just, it's more direct and clear communication to our donor. So I'm fine if we, and if we come into issues, we discuss it. If there's challenges that come from it, we discuss it. But I'm fine if we have board committee of the whole workshops meet the second and fourth Thursday of the month following the regular board meeting.
And then specify
what those various
could be,
correct. And again, I think it's a matter if having curriculum items on both the second and fourth becomes a burden, that's our job to talk to you and relay to you the concerns that's causing the administration, and we work through them. If it's something for the business team that now we have finance twice, we talk about that and work through them.
Well, we currently only have committee meetings once a month.
Twice.
Well, the specific committee.
Other than staffing administrations on both.
Right.
Yes.
So if we would hold it 1 week, the thought could even be we default to not having it the next meeting because we've already had that committee that month.
And I see it as, I don't know that anything has to change other than how we are communicating.
Well, can I ask you a question? What's to stop us to simply having every meeting, all the committees listed? But if there's no business for that committee, then we don't deal with it.
And that's basically what we're saying. That's the recommendation that we're basically talking about.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
My only question is for finance, would that, whether we go with the large pool or we move finance to the first week of the month, is that going to, are we not going to be able to see it from a financial reporting perspective? We have the numbers in time by that first week. So to do a financial report that first week, are we going to have captured everything that we need in terms of action?
And that kind of goes into the next agenda item that, because, but may I say, can we get to that?
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah. As the direction from the board first is, are you comfortable with committee of the whole following each regular voting meeting? These are the committees that may meet on those second and fourth Thursday current.
I feel just transparency with the public is the most important thing. So however we can come to an agreement to do that is what we need to do.
Okay. I have my direction on that topic. And so then anything else specific, the next agenda item, I was going to bring this in January, but as Mrs. Martin and I built this agenda, it tied right in, do it once.
Right, I didn't have anything else on policy 006. Did anybody else?
Okay, so may I go to the next agenda? Is board meetings. We've traditionally, and I still have policy 006 up here. As currently, policy specifically states the second and fourth Thursday. My team in reviewing and prepping board meeting calendar for next year is you actually take action on that every year, setting your meetings so that we can legally advertise them. Talked about Bernie why we believe the first and third Thursday would benefit us and also aid in transparency. Okay, so I'm going to leave the policy where if we would decide to go to first and third, that's another element of policy that I would bring to you as a change. Okay, but we'll go to the board meeting dates. And again, think about the season we're in right now. Every November and December, we have to move off of the second and fourth Thursday because of holidays. 2 months guaranteed that we move. Some of the other holidays in a calendar year that are the Easter holiday where we typically have time off of school, that fluctuates in where it falls. But that's typically one moving part versus the November, December. So from a structure to our community and a statement, if we go to first and third, we believe in a typical year, we have greater consistency that we're first and third. Okay. One of the challenges that we would have to also change, and this goes to your question, Mr. Steinmetz, we currently approve the treasurer's report in the first meeting of the month. If we go to first and third, we would have to do that in the second meeting of the month because we won't have bank statements in a timely fashion for our business team to provide the reports to. So no difference, just the different meeting of a month that would take place.
What about graduation in June? Is that typically around that first Thursday, Friday timeframe?
That is a potential conflict. Didn't think of that. Thank you.
So we would have to.
I'll have to build a calendar every year that doesn't have a Thursday graduation.
Yeah.
Well, then yes. Yeah. It's a tough one.
That was going to be my only comment. Is you're going to have years where 4th of July falls on a Thursday, as you said, the Easter. Again, Easter's not on Thursday, but the break itself.
Yeah.
People going away. This week you got New Year's.
Yeah, it will change slightly every year.
Right.
Because you don't want to change policy in your meetings every year.
Exactly, to accommodate the schedule.
Right.
But as long as we announce, like if we're making a shift within our calendar here, and we approve our board meetings, as long as we announce to the public that for certain days, like that's the adjustment that we're making a shift. It is announced to the public that we're still within the guidelines of being open to the public or transparent, correct?
Absolutely. So if you look at my attachment there, the second and fourth Thursday, for example, this would be following our normal pattern, no change to policy. And we review these, you as a board vote on these, typically in January of every year. And then our office goes and posts these legal ads announcing them, and we put them on the website. So we're notifying up front that due to holidays, we're going first and third in these months.
So for those that were carried on from the last one, any issues with any of the other committees by going to a first and third that this would affect in terms of reporting?
I think if you keep it Thursday, we're okay. Because you got the IU, or you got the CTC on Tuesdays. There's a lot of meetings are on Tuesdays. So as long as we kept it the day, I think the week it's in.
Okay.
So you said the administration would prefer first and third?
It's 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. We've discussed it in certain years. Angela would love the first and third. Hiring in August, first and third is better, and getting teachers hired to start the year.
Yeah, we don't have a meeting in July, so July 4th would be an issue. So, but if we can, yeah, if we can help you, it's kind of even for me. I don't really have too much care either way. Right, but I would be in support of moving to first and third if that's what's going to be beneficial for the administration.
Yeah, for sure.
That the will of the board will make that change in 006 when we bring it to you in committee January 8th.
Okay.
I'm sorry, as soon as you asked, like, the whole browser shut down, and I said no. No. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I have my direction on that one. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Latimer?
Next item is item 4, the American Red Cross Disaster Relief Facility request.
My predecessor, in her final 6 months of superintendency in Palmyra, had an agreement with the American Red Cross. They have come back to me seeking an update, basically in time of crisis in the community, seeking use of our middle school and high school as a shelter during a natural disaster. So before you is the facility use agreement that they require. I did fill out some general statement stuff, demographic related information. They're specifically speaking for 2 buildings only. My assumption is if there's a natural disaster or some type of disaster causing this, we're likely impacted anyways. And if we can house them, we're happy to do so. This speaks to the specifics, resources that they would seek in terms of storage, parking, disaster shelter, and having to sign off on each of those. Doing a pre-walk, so we're documenting status of our facility before they come in, and then after they go out, evaluating that. Custodial services, security, safety. So it goes through details each of the items. It does specifically state under item 9 that the Red Cross does not typically pay fees to use facilities as shelters. So they would be using the shelter or the school free of charge.
What kind of circumstance would they have a fee? Like, that was a question. Is this ever invoked that they would use our facility for a fee?
I'm just guessing. There's a tornado in town and they've got 200 people that they're placing in our gymnasiums that they're not going to have to pay rent. to us for rental of the facility during that time. Is that
Right, no, I'm saying, what would be the circumstance where they would pay us? What's an example of something like that? Is that, I don't understand what this is in here for.
Well, I think there could be some legitimate impact to the building, and actually reading this, they actually would have carte blanche to our food service resources, including the food itself. So if we had a natural disaster and we had impact to our facility, custodial services, food services, and there is no compensation, we're left on the hook. And not saying in an emergency we shouldn't try to provide those services, we certainly can, but we also can't obligate ourselves to a $50,000 food loss because there's a disaster necessarily. So I think it's important to understand what we're agreeing to completely with this sort of a situation. And that leads me to my question is, can they invoke this without our permission?
I will get answers to those two questions.
I mean, I interpret it as at the request of the Red Cross that the owner will turn over the facility. So I don't know if they're words matter, I guess you could say. So what is request? When we turn out a request, who wants to be the person that turns down the request of the Red Cross? Like, who wants to make that call? And to your point, Mr. Andrew, I agree that the increment, I mean, what's the price of food that we have on hand right now if we return to the high school? Like, do we know what that cost is? And that's kind of a little question.
It's enough that when a freezer goes down, we have alarms tied to it in our maintenance department right for the school.
And there are some strategies of how we can fulfill or recoup that money if a federal disaster is declared. Then we can go through state resources. They will reimburse us also. I'd have to go back and give you the actual line for custodial hours fees. They'll reimburse it, but I don't believe that ties into custodial resources. So to your point, at the request of the Red Cross, would be voluntarily turning over all food and also custodial resources. And that it's just one of those things that we have to identify that we'd be running risk on of taking on that responsibility. Now, granted, I'll leave it to you, Dr. It was the last time the Red Cross took over the high school.
13 years I've been.
I don't want it to see it happen either. Maybe Mr. Guy might know he was here for the longest, but it's at least a number I would be concerned or would like to know, at least from the school district perspective, that we typically on hand we have $60,000 worth of food and custodial resources on hand, so we understand what for us to now prepare or release the budget that we would have to then use, like have money on hand so that we could move that funding if we needed to sustain our operations once the Red Cross leaves. So just forward planning.
Get that information.
Has the solicitor looked at this? Is that who you're?
I have not taken this to the solicitor.
So is that how you're going to answer some of these questions? Would you be going to them?
I can go to them. I was going to reach out to the contact and get the answer from Red Cross first.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why they only wanted the two buildings? Was it just because of the size?
Yes.
Okay.
Are these agreements with the Red Cross for any other community buildings that you know of?
Not that I'm not aware of any.
I don't want to speak for it.
Are there any other comments, questions? Okay, I think if you can get those answers for us, I'll bring it back.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Sounds good. Item 5 is athletic department school-sponsored overnight trip for the varsity baseball team.
So this
Their annual trip.
At least 5 years, not a few more. The baseball program has requested the board to authorize them to travel to Ripken Myrtle Beach facility in the spring of the year, where they practice, they do 2 scrimmages, and last year they actually, for the first time, and they're requesting it again, they would play their first actual PIAA game while at the facility. A weather-related issue, the overnight trip request is there. It's before you because it's an overnight trip, and the board approves all overnight trips. There's a letter there also from the head coach, Judd Heilman, providing his justification and value of the trip. Mr. Guy will ask, so I'll tell you in advance. Students leave on a Friday, return on a Monday, so they are missing 2 days of school for said trip.
And I'm very consistent on this. I will vote no. Because of losing school time. It doesn't make any difference whether it's wrestling or band. I'm just consistent on that.
You are?
I have no problem if they go in the summer or when we don't have school. I will never vote for it to miss school.
Is this self-funded?
Yes, no cost to the district. Particularly, none of the coaches are on our staff, so no sub cost at all.
It's just the varsity team, right?
Yes, specifically list varsity.
Players that make the varsity team.
Yes.
Is the age group makes the varsity? That is a good. That is a good. Would be a good thing to know. I'm still in favor of. Always approve this, but now that you bring that up, but if you got promoted to varsity last year.
I was gonna say, I'm sorry, whether we discussed. Said that, she brought that up, I didn't.
It's only the varsity going on this trip. It does say varsity piece, but I just thought the whole team went, but you do bring up a good point.
Sorry, what?
Because this seems to be before, right, March 13th to 16th seems to be before your lineup will be set. On varsity or not. I guess if we could just get that answer from Coach Hano.
I'll work with Mr. Weidler to get, what I'm hearing you ask is, I'll verify when's the first day of official PIAA practice compared to when do they make decisions on who's on the varsity roster that would go on the trip relative to the March 13th departure date.
Correct. Right. If March 20th is when they decide who's varsity and who's JV, then how do we feel comfortable that it's the varsity on the
Sure.
Is that geez, wait, but aside from that, I'm
I will provide the board those answers.
That makes sense. Dates. So, good time.
Isn't it the coach's discretion either way? So in other words, if he says you're all going on the trip, or he says you're all varsity going on the trip, isn't he ultimately the one deciding who's going to meet that category?
Correct.
So I guess I'm not quite understanding the point. Genuinely, like what are we trying to understand better?
So is the varsity roster going? When is the varsity roster finalized? And has the coach made those decisions and determined that? I agree, should be the person making those decisions. And are all of those students on the varsity roster included and determined to go on the trip?
So are you looking for like for the board to be given the roster or the administration to verify that those are the only folks going on the trip?
Who's going on the trip? Let's communicate it, pass it forward, and sure, yes. Communication, clear communication. These are the students going on the trip. We're going to make the varsity team by such date for this reason. And it is the coach that makes those decisions rather than any external gloves or.
When is the first practice? When is the varsity roster determined? And your clear communication plan to the players who's on the varsity roster going on the trip. The three things I've heard as action items.
Correct.
Okay. I will get you those answers.
But I don't think that means to, I mean, unless there's a majority here that is in favor of moving this to the motion. This is a motion at the next meeting. have to vote on, because would imagine they've got to put deposits down.
Correct.
So for March 13th to the 16th, so I would say if we're not voting on it, bring it to motion at the next meeting, it's going to be in January, which is a problem.
Or I can get you the answers. What I think what I'm hearing is motion on January 8th. I'll get you the answers prior to you having to take action on that.
I would appreciate it. I'm in favor. All right, the bullet point 6 is going to be a grant writer feasibility study.
So I'd asked Dr. Kepler to put this on the agenda at Mr. Steinmetz' request. So I'm going to ask you to give us a few words about the request.
I know just over my time attending the meetings on that side with Lori and then now on here, it's been brought up a couple of times of talking about exploring the opportunities of another personnel coming on to write grants full-time. Was it a role that we could have done internally and it's been done part-time? I did get a list of the grants that we currently apply for. And so the feasibility study, what I'm hoping that the administration can bring back is the value, basically the valuation of having a full-time personnel or employment writing grants for us. Would that open up more opportunities towards funding for some of the other things that we're looking into doing within the district? And I know, I think it's where you have 5 listed here, 6 grants. And if that's the case, if we only have those 6 that we can apply for, then I think we can say we're doing it in-house. If the opportunity is there that by having someone full-time, or even perhaps there's an employment that's already here that has internally that's the credentials to write grants or knows how to, that might be an opportunity to expand how many grants we can write towards. And because there's specific scheduling of when grants are open, I'd like to see the opportunity, should we have someone on staff that can do that for us full-time, and what type of value delivery will we have in return for that? Right now, and just off the numbers that I got from the grant, we currently are at 2.8 million of money in grants. And I'd like to see if there's a way that we can increase that, or if there's opportunities to increase that past the 2.8. I'm happy to answer any questions or any kind of clarification on that.
The data points that I hear you speaking of is value of personnel costs. What's it cost to put somebody in personnel to do that job? Salary, benefits, et cetera, relative to an assessment of grant availability and potential revenue resources, and do that analysis. If that's the role of the board, we can certainly handle that and take care of that. The timeline of that would be something I would ask the board to consider me talking to my team about as we enter teacher negotiations. I know the HR piece is going to be very heavily involved in that process. So if I can have some flexibility on the timeline that you would give that task to us.
I think January 5th is when public school grants, like the majority, good portion of public school grants open up is January 5th. So my understanding is it'd probably be too soon to try to obviously action it by January 5th. But I also just thinking about it, does the administration have some type of, let's just say like credentialing Rolodex of internally to say that we have, maybe there is already someone that's on staff that is, I guess, credentialed or has any type of experience in writing grants that we could, if we do go in that direction, be able to offer to them in-house first?
We don't have a Rolodex of who has that grant writing experience. I'm not aware of anyone. My concern of in-house is the human capital we have is stretched now. To add that job responsibility is something we would have to assess, because I think it would be a tall task. You know, just in comparing employee bases of neighboring districts of similar size, we have a lot fewer employees than others around us. And that would just be, I think, a tall task.
To be clear to the board, also illustrate, I'm not looking to add an additional responsibility. It would just be, if we have someone internally, we open up an entirely new position Do you have someone who's already familiar with the district?
Do we have bench strength?
Right, exactly.
Okay, I'm not aware of it.
Would you think, just your opinion today, at this point, is there enough availability out there to increase that where it would justify a full-time position? And of course, not to hold you to any, it's just your thoughts initially on that.
Two thoughts that come to mind is I couldn't sit here and tell you there's not, because I've not done a feasibility study on the topic. I'm not aware of, it would concern me that is there enough revenue available that matches the direction and vision of what we're going? I would be hesitant, and that's the second point, I'd be hesitant to chase money solely for the purpose of taking us down a different rabbit hole. If it ties into our mission and vision and what the board set for us, oh, by all means, we'll do everything we can to get revenue. That analysis, the hardest part in that analysis would be, in my mind, is finding where the money is. And just by doing the analysis, maybe we'll find something that is of value to us.
Happy to answer any further questions that you have coming out of that also, just to recap it.
That it? All right, item number 7, public comment.
Our public have any comments?
And number 8 is announcement of executive session, and I do not have the language for the reasons.
I have. So the board will meet in executive session immediately following this meeting tonight regarding review of the employment of fall coaches for fall 2026, a discussion related to retention and negotiation strategies for all employees, a student matter confidential under FERPA, and confidential personnel issues discussing performance of particular individuals, and lastly, an update on the outcome of employee investigation. For attending this evening.